there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to reading Plato's Republic, Book 1. This is going to be the third video, looking at basically the continuation of the debate, basically the discussion of Polemarchus. Polemarchus is taking up the debate of his father. His father's argument was about justice, was that justice was basically made the argument, starts it out that responding that what about old age, and Socrates says, see the video before to get that. But he ends up defining the real good of money is being able to do things with it, particularly do just things with it. And therefore, what is justice? Well, justice is keeping one word, promises, keeping one contracts. Right, this is businessman's view. Contracts, right? The contracts keeping one promises, one agreements, one promises, and paying one's debts. Okay, this is very much a man of businesses kind of. This is the capitalist understanding of here. This is justice in terms of a kind of keeping one promises to the gods and to man, and paying the debts to gods and to man. Now he ends it. Polemarchus takes over. He basically doesn't want. He basically wants to says, "Listen, I have to go. I'd maybe like to talk with you, Socrates, but I have to go to sacrifice to the gods. So I'm going to let Cephalus, lets his son inherit. So you're inheriting my argument. You're inheriting like you're inheriting my other things. You're inheriting this. So he takes Cephalus. We begin now looking at basically lines through 331D to 336A, which gives us the whole debate of things. So Polemarchus starts off taking over his father's argument. So let's go look at this over here. And let's go look at this over here. So therefore, there it is. There's the space over here. There we go. Look. He goes, and that is and what is owed by, yes, he's owed by measured. In other words, so I'm heir and the shares what are yours. Polemarchus, quite so. He laughs. The sacrifices. So tell me, Socrates says, heirs to the share in the discussion. What do you say that Simonides says that speaks rightly about justice? What is the Simonides says? That it's just to give what's owed to each person, and in saying that he seems to me to be put beautifully, right? And surely, I said, it's not an easy thing to disbelieve Simonides, but remember, Simonides is the poet that Xenophon, in his hero, which is a tyrant between Simonides and a poet, Simonides and a tyrant, right, and about moderating justice. So the argument is that Simonides really seem to be like a Socratic, kind of the poet that is most Socratic in that sense. Okay, this is, and in fact, Socrates even says that it's hardly to disbelieve Simonides, since he is wise and a godlike man. So he's highly praising him, right? However, whatever it is that he means by this, you no doubt know, Polemarchus, but I'm ignorant of it. So you know something I don't know. You saying you know this, Simonides surely wise. You say I know it. I'm ignorant of what Simonides argues here. So tell me, for it's obvious that he doesn't mean this, the thing that we're talking about just now, giving anything that had been entrusted to him back to whomever when not being of sound mind, he demands it. And yet this is he entrusted to someone is certainly owed him, right? Yes. But it is not by any means to be given back at a time when someone is not of sound mind, demands it, right? True, he says. So it's unlikely Simonides means something's other than this sort of thing in saying that giving what is owed is just. He sure does, by Zeus, Polemarchus says. For he assumes that friends owe it to friends to do something good and not something bad. So he changes all of a sudden. Now notice he says, oh, but he does. He's arguing that I'm going to, I owe it is, but I also should do this. I should do something good, not something bad. I understand, Socrates says. That whoever gives back to someone's to someone's gold that has been entrusted to him, does not give him what's old, does not give what's old, if the giving and the getting would be harmful, and the people getting it back and giving it are friends. Isn't this what you say Simonides means? Very much so. Then what? Is one to give back to enemies whatever happens to be owed them? Absolutely, he said. That one owed what's owed them, and I suppose what's owed, and I suppose that's what's owed from an enemy is to an enemy the thing that the very thing is fitting in something bad, right? Something bad. Okay, and his response is, well, yes. In other words, he promises I. The argument seems to be that keeping promises and doing good to someone. First of all, keeping promises and paying debts. Well, the question of this is objected to by argument. Well, what about the crazy person that you borrowed a weapon from, or that a crazy person who's going to do something bad with the money? You borrowed this. You got his money, or you borrowed his. You he gave you his gold, or he's given you the weapon. These are his gold and his weapon. He wants it back. He's mad. He's crazy. He wants it back. If you do now, his argument, Polemarchus' argument is, well, it doesn't mean that, because that would be surely unjust, because you should be doing good to him, right? And then Socrates goes, what about an enemy, right? What about an enemy? And the enemy says, well, yeah, maybe you should give it to him. If it's, give back, because what's happening is he's the enemy. So if it harms him, he deserves the harm, right? That is fitting something bad, right? Then it's likely, I have said, that Simonides is being cryptic in a poetic way about what would be just. For it appears he thought that it would be just to give each person what's fitting, but he used the word owed. So giving the word is what fitting. Yes. What else could you think? Polemarchus said. For Zeus' sake, I said, if someone then asked him, Simonides, what by giving what that's one old and fitting to that sorry by giving what that's old and fitting what to what does an art get called medical, right? Fitting to what does an art get called medical, right? What would you suppose he'd say in reply? Well, it's clearly, he said, drugs and also food and drinks of the bodies, right? And by giving that's what's old and fitting to what does that art, what an art gets called culinary, right? To season and delicacy. So culinary is, he says, okay, diet and food like this, medicines and diet. But then what about culinary? What is the art about culinary composed of? Well, seasonings to delicacies. Okay, by now we're giving what to what would be called, we are giving what to what would be called the art of what an art be called justice. What kind of art is justice, right? So what is justice? He said, if it needs to follow along with the thing said before, Socrates, by giving benefits and damage to friends and enemies. So helping friends and harming enemies, right? Giving benefits, help to and damage to giving benefits and damage to friends and enemies. And I think that sounds right. Then does he mean that doing good to one's friend and harm to one's enemies is just? It seems to me. So who has the most power to do good to sick friends and harm to sick enemies in regard to disease and health, right? So he gives the example of health, okay? In regards to who has the ability to do this, right? And he goes, a doctor. Then who to those aboard ships in regard to danger at sea? A helmsman. And what about someone who's just? In what action and with regard to what work does he have the most power to benefit friends and damage enemies? Now, Polemarchus, war lover, right? And going to war and taking side in battle, it seems to me. So therefore, okay, now To those who aren't sick, my friend Polemarchus, a doctor is useless. True. And also a helmsman to whom on aboard ships. Yes. Then is it also the case who's just is useless to those who are not fighting a war? That doesn't seem so to me at all. Okay. Uh, 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 then justice is useful in also in peacetime. This is against Socrates, right? It is useful. So therefore, it's not only justice only to war, and then therefore it's peacetime. And farming too, or not? Yes. For obtaining crops? Yes. And surely leatherworking too. Art. These are crafts, right? Crafts. What is the purpose of the craft? The craft is doing this, right? Yes. For obtaining shoes? I'd suppose you say certainly. Yes, right. For what? So then what? For using or obtaining what in peacetime would you say justice is useful? For contracts, Socrates, his father's argument, right? And by contracts, you mean partnerships or something else? Partnerships, of course. So then, is a just person a good and useful partner in the placement of checkers or in or a skilled checkers player? A skilled checkers player, right? And for the placements of bricks and stones, is the just person more useful and better partner than a house builder? By no means. But then, for what sort of partnership is the just person a better partner than a house builder, a harpist, and a harpist? And the way a harpist is better than a just person for strumming, right? What else has to do with money? For what has to do with money? It seems to me, except perhaps Polemarchus, for using money. When money is when money is needful for a share in buying a house, buying or selling a horse, and then I imagine it's the horse expert, isn't it? So it appears, right? So therefore, it's not. In other words, I need to know. It's not about buying it, That's like using it. It's about making it. So therefore, this idea of this copy contract is about making it and doing it, right? And not about, you know, uh, uh, um, has to do with money. And surely, when it's for a ship, it's the shipbuilder or the helmsman. It seems likely, right? It's the shipbuilder or the helm. So therefore, the one who making buying it, you want to know, you ask that person, right? It seems likely. Then, where there is a need to use silver or gold in common, for what purpose is the just person more useful than anyone else? So therefore, you're using silver when there is a need to use silver and gold in common for common benefits. For what purpose is the just person more useful than anyone else, right? Okay. When they need to be entrusted to someone and kept safe. Okay, we have to make sure that the common money is kept safe and not harmed, right? So, do you mean when there is no need to use them, but when they're lying around? Certainly. Okay. Therefore, it is when money is useless that justice is useful for it, right? Okay, that's likely to be so. Then a pruning knife needs to be guarded. Justice is useful in common as well as in private. In other words, but when it is needful to be used, what is useful is skill at skill at tending vines, right? Oh, so it appears, right? If you will and you will claim about a shield and a lyre, then when they need to be guarded, in other words, you will claim about a shield and a lyre that when they be guarded and not used, justice is useful. But when they need to be used, what is useful are the arts of shouldering and music. Necessary so, right? Oh, about other all other things. That justice is useless in the use of them, but useful in the useless. That's likely to be so. Well, then, my friend, justice would not be a serious thing. It would be useful exactly for useless things. But let us consider this point: the person who's cleverest at hitting someone in a fight, whether in boxing or another kind, isn't he also cleverest against guarding against it? Very much so. So therefore, Socrates saying it. So then, too, whoever is clever at guarding against disease, isn't he clever at going undetected and causing it? It seems to me also, right? And surely the same person is a good guardian for an army who is good at getting to know the enemy's deliberations and other actions by stealth, right? Very much so. Then whatever someone is a clever guardian of, and that he is also a clever thief, he's also a clever thief. Guardian, but also a thief. He's stealth. He's like this. He has to know the ways of a thief. He has to be a clever guardian, but he's also clever. It seems that way. So if someone who is just is clever at guarding silver, he's also clever at stealing it. That's the way the argument is pointing at any rate. Then it looks like the just person has shown up at a certain up as a certain kind of thief, and you're liable to have learned this from Homer, since he's fond of Autolycus, Odysseus' grandfather on his mother's side, and he says he excelled all the other men at stealing and swearing false oaths. It's likely then, according to you and to Homer and to Simonides, that justice is a certain kind of thievery, enough for the benefit of one's friends and harm to one's enemies. Isn't that what you meant? No, by Zeus, he said. But I no longer know what I meant. This though still seems right to me, that justice is benefiting one's friends and harming one's enemies. So I don't know. I've lost. You've confused me, Socrates. You've confused me, Socrates. Whatever you've done here, you've got me confused. Maybe your argument this, but this is not what I really meant. It's justice. I still believe it's right that justice seems to me is benefiting one's friends and harming one's enemies. And by friends, do you mean those who seem trustworthy to each person, or those who are trustworthy, even if they don't seem to be, and likewise with enemies? It is likely, he said, that one loves those who regards as trustworthy and hates those who regards as worthless. That don't people make mistakes about this, and so many people seem trustworthy to them without being so, and many the other way around? They make mistakes. And to them, good people are enemies and bad people friends. Certainly. So therefore, Socrates is confusing. Socrates is simply just pointing out this is Socrates' constantly method, that he gets you to make a position and shows he questions it with other conditions, and these are the contradictions, right? And the contradiction, then you have to go to another. You redefine your definition. This is the classic strategy of the Socratic method. Now, this is, some people say this is trickery, right? But okay. To them, good people. I mean, certainly right. Let's go to the next one. But it is still a just thing for these people to benefit the worthless and harm the good. It appears so. But surely the good are just and not the sort to do injustice. True. So according to your statement, it's just to do harm to those who do nothing unjust. There's no way. There's no way that's true, Socrates. He said, it's very likely to be the statement that's worthless. Then it's unjust people. I said that it's just to harm, and just people that it's just to benefit. This appears to be more beautiful than the other. So not friends, not enemies, the just. Not the, in other words, he gets the argument is, instead of helping friends and harming enemies, you help the just and harm the unjust, right? So, this statement appears to be more beautiful than the others, right? In that sense, this is it says that for this it is more harm, that is the just harm, and just people that's benefit. Okay. This is Polemarchus says this is unjust. Then it's unjust people. This is Socrates' position, right? Harm the unjust and help the just, right? This is more beautiful, cologne, noble, beautiful cologne, right, than others. Then for many, Polemarchus, all the people who make mistakes, it will turn out to be just to harm their friends, since they have worthless ones, and benefit their enemies, if they're good. And so we'll be saying the very opposite of what we claim some Simonides meant. That's much of the way it turns out, he said. But let's change it around. For for we're likely to have put friends and enemies in a way that's not right. By putting them how, Polemarchus? That the ones whom seem trustworthy is a friend. And now, as I said, how shall we change this around? That the one who both seems and is trustworthy, he said, is a friend. But the one who seems but isn't trustworthy seems to be, but isn't a friend. But putting the same way around the enemy. In other words, um, so it looks like the one who's good by this statement will be the friend and one who is worthless will be the enemy. Yes. So you're ordering us to put an amendment on what's just compared to the way we first speaking of it. When we said that it was first to do good to friends and harm an enemy, now it's in addition to this to what we've said. It's good to do. It is just to do good to a friend who is good, but harm to an enemy who is bad. Entirely so. And in this way, seems to me, in other words, he says, seems to me to say it beautifully. Therefore, does it therefore belong to a just man? I said to do harm even to any human being at all. Very much so, he says. By all means, he needs to do harm to those who are both worthless people and enemies. Right? Then, when horses are harmed, do they become better or worse? Worse. In regard to the virtue of dogs or that of horses, in regards to that of horses, um, in other words, in regards to the virtue of dogs or that of horses, regards to that of horses. So also, when dogs are harmed, do they become worse in regard to the virtue of dogs, but not to that of horses necessarily? But as for human beings, we shall we not say the same things? My companions, that when they are harmed, they become worse in regards to human virtue. In other words, by harming someone, don't they become worse? Now, this is the argument: is people don't get virtuous by harming them. You don't make them virtuous by harming them. So it shouldn't. The basic thrust is by harming you, do I make you better or worse? Maybe make you by harming them. I usually make them worse. So I'm making a person who's bad worse, right? Very much so. But isn't justice human virtue? This too is necessary. And therefore, my friend, those human beings who are harmed necessarily become more unjust? It looks likely. Well, now, do musicians have the power to make people unmusical by means of music? They're powerless to do. Okay, so are skilled horsemen able to make people inept at riding by horsemanship? It can't be. Then but then are those who are just able to make people unjust by means of justice? So are the uh, uh, um, in other words, he's saying this is the analogy from the arts, right? If this is true in this art, this is that. Then the art of justice would be the same. Like what is true in one art is true of all arts. Well, isn't this a fallacy? I mean, this is the problem with Socrates' argument here. Are all arts first of all, is justice an art a techne? Okay, and are all technes the same? Okay, he seems to argue that all technes are the same, and his argument about justice is an analogy from the arts. And this is something that Aristotle in his Politics criticizes Plato for doing and anyone doing. The analogy of the art is not true, is false. regarding political things, regarding political justice, regarding the city. It's these things. The analogy of the arts are false. Aristotle says twice. So now back to him. Therefore, we have this argument, right? Um, and in other words, this is Socrates saying, and by then those who are able to make people unjust by means of justice, and putting it all together, are the good able to make people bad by means of virtue? They are powerless to. Okay, they can't make people bad, right? Because they only make people good. The other arts like this. For it is not the work of heat, I presume, to cool anything, but rather the opposite. Yes, nor of dryness to moisten anything, but the opposite, certainly. Nor then of what's good to harm anything, but the opposite. It appears so. And one who is just is good, certainly. Then it's not the work of the just person to harm, Polemarchus, either to a friend or to anyone else, but just the opposite, the unjust person. You seem to me to speaking the truth absolutely, Socrates, he says, right? Then, if someone claims if it's just to give what's owed to each person, and this carries the meaning for him that harm is owed from the just man to his enemies, but benefit to his friends, the one saying these things is not wise, since he wasn't telling the truth. He's not wise. He's not telling the truth. For it has become obvious to us that this is never just to harm anyone. I go along with that, he says. Then we'll go into battle. The neighbor's battle, war lover, right? And I said, you and I partnership. And if anyone claims that Simonides or Bias or Pittacus or any of the other wise and blessed men have said that, I, for my part, am ready, he said, as to be your partner in battle, right? This is that I like idea. This playful remark is a reversal for Polemarchus, not only in the option of his opinion, but his attitude. Since he began action of dialogue by insulting and imposing his will on Socrates, now he's going to be a friend of Socrates, right? This is the flip. This is the change that happens. Socrates kinds of gets him to be on his side. He's going to go to do battle with him. But do you know, I said, whose way of speaking it seems to me to claim that the just thing to benefit and harm enemies? Who? He said. I suppose it is the statement of Periander or Percidius or Xerxes or um, Ismenian the Theban or some other rich man who imagines he has great power. What you say is almost true, he says. Well then, since it has come to light that neither justice nor that come like this is neither justice nor a good thing, what else should one claim they are? And this is where Thucymachus interrupts, just loses it, right, and comes in. And this ends the Polemarchus discussion right here. So we're going to end this here. Put your comments or questions here on the bottom. I'm going to move my thing here. Put your comments and questions below, and when I see them on this, I will respond to them. If you have any specific things on this dialogue between Polemarchus and Socrates here, then another thing we need to do is, if you've liked it, like it, share it with a friend, share it on social media, hit the like button, share it again. It helps the channel get more likes. If you haven't hit like, please hit the like if you liked it. I don't think people don't do that. We read it for a couple minutes and I walked away. Right. These are going to be shorter videos in that sense. Now what we do is, voila, we have a problem, and that problem is didn't like it. You had a problem with what I said here, something I didn't like, didn't think is wrong or something. Please, you can hit the down button, but say why. Explain yourself. Please explain yourself and about what the issue is, and maybe I can learn from it. Okay. Another thing is, if you've not subscribed, please subscribe. If you know someone who might be interested in subscribe, please get them to subscribe by sharing. Encourage them to watch the video, encourage them to look at the channel and join. I'd like to grow the channel some more. If you have not Okay, because by subscribing, you get notifications of this regular notification. The other thing is, they can if you want to follow me on social media, my links are below. The other links are below is to my academic social media, which has stuff about my scholarship and other things. Another thing is that if you want to help me do what I do, if you want to contribute to help me do what I do, you can do so by becoming a member, a Patreon on Patreon or Subscribestar. It's not much. I think it's like $5 a month or something like that. If you can do it, you can do it for so many months. I'm not sure. Certain people can maybe send. You can also send something by PayPal. You want to help them, but you're doing this. What? You're not doing much. You're not offering much on Patreon or Subscribestar, because really, I'm doing this, but you're doing it for free anyway. So why should we give you money? Why should you join there if you're not going to give us special things? Well, there's a rule. If you build it, if in other words, if you build it, they will come. Right? I will do. If you all of a sudden there's several people who are there and they want special Patreon or Subscribe Star only stuff. Okay, I will gladly do that, but there's no one there, and why should I do something if there's no one there? So, okay, that's stuff about that. So you want to help that way, you can do it. Another way you can help is by buy one of my books. The books are listed below. You can get them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any other online booksellers, maybe even at some bookstores. You order them, and that's if you want to do it. If you want to, but if you really want to help me in this, you want to buy the Lulu book, buy it from Lulu. Go to Lulu directly and order it, because that way I get because if you buy it by Amazon or book parcels, they make their money, and therefore, but if you buy it by Lulu, I get the money that the bookseller makes. So that's why I'm saying that. Well, that's it. We did everything in here. I'm going to be continue posting these for this week, and that's it. Take care. Bye bye.